MacVoicesTV is brought to you by PDF Pen for iPad from Smile, the mobile version of the award-winning Mac PDF editor. Use it to sign a contract, make corrections, fill out an application, make comments on a presentation, and much more. It's the mobile app that doesn't feel like you left the important features back at the office. Welcome to Mac Notables. This is the home of the Mac experts you want to hear from. I'm Chuck Joyner, and we've got Tonya Engst back to give us an update on her life and adventures and everything. Tonya, it's great to have you.
Hi, Chuck. It's great to be here. It's been too long.
It always is, Tonya. I don't know where the time goes, but it's always fun when we do get together, and we get to take a peek into the inner workings of the TidBITS and Take Control empire.
Haha.
Since you're the queen there, what's the latest from within TidBITS and Take Control? Anything new, exciting?
Well, behind the scenes, something that's very exciting is we're starting to really see some motion from a web designer we're working with. We're trying to have a complete redesign of our website to make it much more visually attractive and much more easy to navigate. The site was designed back in 2003 by Adam and I. It has primarily grown organically as needs come up. We think we do okay. We kind of give ourselves a solid B, but we'd really like to take control, to the next level. And we actually saved a lot of the profits from the books for several years so that we could really work with a professional designer. And we have a two-person team, a designer, and someone who can work with Expression Engine, which is the database backend that drives the system. So it seems like these things just take a lot longer than you would think possible, but we're really, really looking forward to being able to give our readers, a better visual experience and better navigation, and not just for people shopping, and in particular for people who've already bought a book and now want to download updates or interact with it. So we're really excited about that. The stuff we've seen from the designer just, looks fabulous, but it is a process to get everything approved and hooked up. So behind the scenes, lots of good stuff happening. Obviously in the forefront, we have Mountain Lion, came out in July. We've already released, I think, 4 books, new books or updated books for Mountain Lion. And a really good thing with Mountain Lion for us is whenever Apple releases a new version of their operating system, all of the books in the Take Control series that focus particularly tightly on the Mac operating system have problems. They're no longer up to date, of course. And so we like to update them. And with the delta between Snow Leopard and Lion, there were just an enormous number of fairly significant changes. And it was really, really challenging for us to get our books updated. And in fact, we haven't yet updated them all. And one of them we actually updated like 3 weeks before Mountain Lion shipped. We finally got it updated for Lion. So it's just a struggle. And our main author, I think some listeners know, is Joe Kissel. Joe's a really wonderful tech writer, and he's had some things going on in his personal life, good things, primarily revolving around having a toddler. And so it's been challenging for him to put in the time that he used to be able to put in. So that was a little discouraging, honestly, but with Mountain Lion, it just seems like the changes are not so much. It's much easier to take a big chunk of information about Lion, figure out what's changed about it in Mountain Lion, write a really short, coherent list of what's changed, and then implement the changes. So I predict that by the end of September, we'll have almost a dozen books updated for Mountain Lion, and it would be sooner, except I'm taking a 10-day vacation quite shortly, so there's going to be a few manuscripts that just have to kind of sit and wait for me to get home, but what can you do? So it's good. It's looking good.
That's great. Hey, those vacations, I mean, you have to do it, otherwise you start to burn out. We all know that. I'm intrigued a bit by the upgrade or the redesign, I guess, that you're talking about of the websites. we've talked about this before, Tonya, on the show, that it's just now impossible to be an expert on everything. In fact, it's tough to be competent in everything. And when you start getting into web publishing the way it exists now, you have to go to a specialist. I mean, it's like going to the doctor, really, I think.
Oh, sure. And it's something that is difficult sometimes for people to realize is when you were taught, I think I was speaking with you recently, I've certainly spoken to a number of people recently about, how do you price an ebook? What's wrong with just charging like $1.99 for an ebook or 99 cents for an ebook? And there isn't really anything wrong with that. But the cost of producing the ebook, there's hidden costs that aren't always obvious, and they certainly weren't obvious to us back in 2003 when we started this series. What could be the big deal? You put up a web page or two, you hook it to PayPal or something, no problem, right? And so it turns out that's all really great, but what happens if you actually want to comply with the rules of U.S. sales tax, or worse yet, the rules of Europe's value-added tax? Well, that's going to make your life a whole lot more complicated. So you might bring in a shopping cart service who can help you with all that. Or what happens if someone buys your ebook and then wants to download it again because they've lost it or something? If you only have 100 customers or even 1,000 customers, if just a few of them write to you every day and ask you to send you a book again because they've lost it or something, sure, you're happy to help out, right? But what if you have tens of thousands of customers and even a small percentage of them write to you every day and ask for a book that they've lost? At some point, you just can't do it anymore, or you can, but it's going to start costing real money because someone has to sit down at a desk and respond to that. So you might think, oh, no problem. We'll make it so people can log into our website and download the books on their own whenever they want to, on their iPad, their iPhone, maybe even their Kindle. And so you say, well, how hard can it be to set up an account system on a website? So it's sort of, it just sort of steamrolls from there. And then you don't just want to set it up and have it work badly. You want all the error messages to be really user-friendly. And no matter how someone, tries to log in, they get a good experience. And then it just ends up to be a whole lot of details that just go completely beyond whether you can write and produce one or two, good ebooks. And we've really tried to step up to the plate and to learn about all this and to think about, how does the customer feel? How does someone feel when they're trying to do this stuff? And, how can we make it better? And because we are such a tiny company, the people who do customer support are pretty much the people who make the decisions about how any profits that might exist get spent and what we do with them. So it's a very tight loop between customer with a problem or a complaint and decision about whether we can address that like right away, or we'd like to, it's on the to-do list, but it's not something we can do right away, or it's horrible, but because we are such a tiny company and just resources available, this is just not something that we can address. And those are horrible decisions because we hate saying, we're just not going to solve this one. That we abhor that, but it is a sort of a reality for occasional problems. So yeah, and as far as design goes, we're not terrible at design, but certainly someone who's just has that eye, that visual eye, can do a better job. And we've brought in someone who we just love his visuals, and they're vastly better than what we could do.
You beat me to it, Tonya. I was going to say, out of everything you said, you left design to the end, which is the first thing that people see, and yet you need the functions, or of course they won't come to the site anyway. If they do, they won't come back. So it's trying to find that marriage. It's not easy. There's no question about it. But it also feels like if you're going to be doing this at the level you're doing it, really, if you're going to be doing anything at any level, that the bar has been raised. That you can't just slap up the default theme on WordPress or a default website kind of thing, that you really need to get into some customization and some tweaking so that it looks the way you want it. It will give your visitors a positive experience, but also house the functionality that is required.
Right, and I'm not sure how many people realize this, but when you go to a website like Take Control, which is, basically a book catalog with about 100 books in it, but this would apply to pretty much any book catalog with more than 50 or 100 books in it, or a website like TidBITS, which Take Control is kind of the sister site to, but really any site that is kind of like a news blog but is clearly not using standard blogging software. These sites, we don't actually have people who make each web page by hand by typing HTML up at the top and /HTML at the bottom and typing all the HTML and all that's required. We don't do that. It's actually a huge database, and all the different elements of each page are just fields in the database. So if we want to put a new entry into our catalog, we get onto a website and we fill in the fields. Like, there's a field for the title of the book, there's a field for the one sentence peppy description of the book, and then we have the short description of the book and the slightly longer description and the really long description and the facts and how many pages are in the book and the price and the author and 7,000 other pieces of metadata that either we want to put on our website or we want to send over to some other website that's also selling our books. So like, we need to send stuff to the iBook store or to Amazon or wherever it is. All that metadata about the book is really stored in a database. And lots of websites do that also for news articles or information articles. I'm sure something like Wikipedia has some kind of content management system database. And so that is how it's done behind the scenes, and it does require people who know how to care and feed for these kinds of databases, and it does get kind of tricky, and you wouldn't expect someone who was really visually awesome and who could do really amazing things in Photoshop. That kind of set of skills is probably not going to be the same set of skills as someone who could design one of these databases to work in a lot of really great flexible ways. So you start having to bring together teams of people to get things done.
Yeah, you think back to when we all started building web pages with some of the tools that were available then, and there were the pure people who coded the HTML by hand, and congratulations to you even back then. But then we started to see the WYSIWYG editors, and you built the web pages, and there were some great tools.
For sure.
Was Adobe did Page Mill? I forget the one that Claris had. There was some great stuff, but we all quickly outgrew the ability to just build that website a page at a time. You needed the database-driven stuff. That's why you've changed over to what you have. I went to the WordPress route because it was well supported. But there's still people that are publishing some great website tools for those that want to build by hand. And I still think there's a market for that. There's
for sure.
Restaurants and businesses that maybe are more trying to just have a presence, a very sexy, great presence, no question about it, but still not the database-driven presence where, like you, how many times do you update the website every day, TidBITS?
Maybe half a dozen.
Yeah. You
or more, because you put an article up on your website, say, right? So that's a major update, but then maybe you realize there's a typo in the article, so you get up there and fix the typo. And then so many websites have commenting, so every time someone comments, that's sort of an update, to the website. So it's just, a very dynamic process for a lot of websites.
Tonya, you finding, as you go through the process with the website redesigns and all, you finding any similarities between that and what you do on the Take Control book side with e-publishing?
A little bit. I mean, with the Take Control books, we designed a template for what we wanted the books to look like, a really long time ago, back in 2003. And so there's a certain look and feel to what the books look like, and we use certain colors and, blah, blah, blah. And it's strongly dictated by, the color scheme we chose way back when, and then by the needs of creating the different formats that we create, the PDF and the EPUB and the MOBI. And we do occasionally tweak that to kind of keep it working as the demands of different ebook formats change. But really, it's been relatively static for a long time. And actually, as an aside, after this website guy goes and redesigns the whole website and all that, if that ever finishes, we would adore it if he would come in and help us really do awesome covers. And, frankly, some of us are a little tired of the yellow and brown color scheme in the Take Control books. Like Joe and I, we look at them all day. We think it would be kind of fun to have some different colors. I'm sure some of our readers who, have hundreds of the books would enjoy a change too. Well, some probably won't enjoy a change, but I think it would be good to keep it fresh. So that is on the plate. But for the most part, with the books, we really get into thinking about how to present information so that the figures are close to the text that describes them, or how can you, using pretty simplistic styling methods, make it clear to people how information is related. And we don't have very many tools for doing that because we have to degrade gracefully into, say, an EPUB on an iPhone. So we don't try to do fancy visuals because we want to work in a wide range of places, and we want to work in the format of a long form book. The website is really quite different because we have a lot more visual options available to us for creating a look and feel. We do want it to degrade gracefully onto an iPhone, but it doesn't have to be, as good or as perfect, or maybe there'll just be a mobile site design for that. And we have a lot more tools available for arranging information. So, we have pop-up menus and sort of pop-up, light box dialogues where a dialogue sort of comes up on the screen and shows you some information. Then you can click an X to get rid of it. So there's a lot more ways to change the information because we have so much more control over the website. We already control what you see based on if you're logged in or not. Whatever we know about you, we can use it to customize what you see. Whereas the books, we have so much less sophistication in the tools we can use to present the information. So we're still trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the people using the materials and try to make it awesome for them, but our tools are kind of different.
They're kind of different, but I think this discussion points to a challenge, an extra challenge that you all have with adapting your content for all the different devices and mediums, both. Mm-hmm. And pay attention to that, folks. Not just devices, but devices and mediums, because in Tonya's case, she can put a Take Control book on the web. She can put a Take Control book in a website. She can put it on your iPad or on your iPhone or on your Mac. After a while, it makes your head spin, and I don't think that people always appreciate the challenges you go through to try to make that stuff available to the people where they want it, the way they want it.
Right. Well, and keep in mind, it would be much simpler if we were writing about, bird plumage or, I don't know.
Bird plumage, Tonya?
Well, just something that doesn't have a lot of updates. So our challenge is we finally get a book written. So just for instance, we have a book, Take Control of Your 802.11 and Airport Network, which I am dearly hoping we can release an update to before I go on vacation at the end of this week, but I'm not sure if we're going to get there or not. But the problem is, if we don't, I will be away for 10 days. And who knows what Apple might do in 10 days to completely destroy this book, make Glenn, the author, have to go back and revise the thing again, which he's going to be so unhappy about. And sometimes these things are very small. But one aspect of this book, which many readers here may not care that much about, but it talks about how the Windows version of this software you use to configure your airport base station is still back on version 5. But we really do expect, any day now, we've been expecting this for like 4 months, that Apple's going to release the version 6 of this Windows software. So we don't want Apple to do that until the book is released. And there's a couple other things, like it'd be really good if no new airport models would come out until the book is released. And we want this book released before the new iPhone comes out, because even though all those things will make us want to update the book again, what we most want to do is get the book out and be able to say, this book is good to go for Mountain Lion. because that's a body of material that we want people to have, and it will be good for them to have it, even if it is wrong about Windows or wrong about some hypothetical airport model. But the point is, every day we don't release this book because we're trying to make the iPhone version work right or the Kindle version work right, or we're just doing our conversions, is a day when, first of all, nobody at all can read it, no matter what kind of computer they have, and second of all, the whole world might change. We might have to go back and write the whole thing again. So once we have a book ready to go, we really want it out the door. And that's just the nature of the beast. So we're always working to be able to do that faster and better.
Tonya, how many versions of a Give and Take Control book do you produce?
How many versions?
Well, how many? Yeah, I guess that's the word. I mean,
well,
formats?
Formats, sure.
Formats? What's the right word for it?
So as far as formats goes, currently the format we're thinking about the most is the EPUB format. And that's because it seems to be the most popular right now among our readers. Secondarily, we have the PDF format, so that's 2 formats. Thirdly, we have the MOBI format. That's especially popular. It's what ends up on the Kindle. And those are the 3 that we focus on. We, fourthly, acknowledge that some people might want to print their book. So when we make the PDF, we do have the idea in mind that it shouldn't print in some horrid way. And fifthly, we don't give a lot of attention to this as we actually produce the books, but it is just something we're aware of in the back of our heads, is that people who have visual problems or who are blind will use screen readers or voiceover to have the books read to them. So we are, that is something that we're thinking about a little bit as we do our work. And so those 5 groups of formats, if you will, is what we're thinking about right now.
So every book comes out in 5 different formats.
Well, right, and really 3. It's just the print and the screen reader is just an aspect of the book that we're keeping in mind a little bit along the way. So yeah.
But the tools have not evolved to the point where it's just 3 little black boxes you drop something into and it spits it out the other side. Everything has to be handcrafted, doesn't it?
Well, yes. And with the PDFs, we've been doing them all along, and we're pretty happy with the way they come out. The EPUBs have been getting better and better. And last spring, actually, it was pretty cool. My son is 13, and he was in this technology club where he had to make a website as part of a competition. He was working with a group, and I got signed up to be the mentor of this group. And I really felt that they should use CSS, cascading style sheets, which is a way of rapidly formatting more than one web page at once. And so I taught them CSS, but this required me to review how this works because I hadn't really gotten my hands wet with CSS in a long time. And then what I realized was, oh, wait a minute, I can use this new skill that I've refreshed in CSS to improve our EPUBs. And this required me to get into BBEdit, which fortunately we had just published a book about, so I was very fresh on that. And I made these thingies called text factories in BBEdit, which is kind of a macro for doing really, really sophisticated searching and replacing in a document. So now our EPUBs look a whole lot better, and they look a whole lot more like our PDFs because we really get in there and we take what is exported from our word processor, which is Pages. We take that export and we run it through this pile of text factory activity over in BBEdit, and some of the time it only takes about 2 minutes and it looks great, and the rest of the time we find a new little bug or problem with these complicated text factories that we have to go solve. But the EPUBs really do look a lot better, but because we've decided we want to go the extra mile with these text factories, it can be hard to predict whether it's going to be 45 minutes or 2 days to make it. So that's how it is.
Yeah, that does play havoc with scheduling, I bet.
Yeah.
You get a lot of time off, or you fall way behind, just depending on how it goes.
Well, we just get a little bit more flaky or vague in our predictions. I think there's a whole lot of books on the website right now that say, there will be an update in August or September, which basically means before Tonya goes on vacation or, sometime after, not sure when, but probably before the end of September because I'll start to feel bad. So.
V or AV, before vacation or after vacation?
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Again, I just don't think that people appreciate it. I know sometimes I don't. I have to stop and think what it takes to put out whatever version of the Take Control book that I'm looking at, and I don't look at them all. For example, I don't have a Kindle, so I really wouldn't look at a Kindle version. But you all are really putting a lot of effort into expanding the Take Control series and spreading it out and maintaining TidBITS, which is no small consideration either.
Well, I think it really almost started with TidBITS. It's just something we've always done where if we're writing this stuff, we want to get it into the hands of a lot of different people and trying to have a lot of different formats. So, TidBITS is a website. It's got shorter articles, and, we make it available, through RSS and through email. I think you get 4 different choices for what kind of email. There is sort of a audio version of TidBITS now, and so the list goes on and on. Back in the day, we published it on a lot of different forums and BBSs, and it sort of continues today, just wanting to communicate broadly to a lot of people. And also, if people are going to send emails saying, hey, can I read this thing on my Kindle, whatever, Android thingy, smartphone, we want to be able to say yes. I mean, it's not very fun to just write email all day saying, no, sorry. That's not very appealing. So.
And I probably shouldn't bring this up on as you head toward vacation, but there's this persistent rumor of the iPad mini, and
yes.
What are the implications of what that might do to you? Do you have any speculation? And I know that it's complete speculation at this point.
Well, it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems to me that the original iPad is not going to work with iOS 6. So Chuck's like rolling his eyes and thinking about that for a second.
I had to think about the original iPad. You meant iPad 1, basically.
Yeah, iPad 1, okay. The first one that came out. So for a while now, we've been dealing with explaining 3 iPads, the original, the iPad 2, and our 3rd generation iPad. So I'm kind of guessing it will be kind of the same thing where the focus will move away from that original iPad. People probably won't have much to say about it anymore as far as printed or online written communications, except sorry little bullet lists of the things it can't do. Poor thing. But so this mini iPad, if it comes to being, will probably get worked in, and I sincerely doubt that the Take Control series will do a special book just about it. We'll probably just rope it into the main series, and that's probably because it will more or less work the same way, and it won't be worth the trouble of. Not that it wouldn't be worth the trouble, but there simply won't be time to create material especially for it, because by the time we create the material and make the ebooks and all the different formats and release it, they'll be onto some other iPad. So we have to, do what we can in a short period of time. So I don't know. I think it sort of goes beyond speculation to say whether there's a sufficient niche for a smaller sized iPad, if people would find that really attractive because it's just the right size between the iPod Touch and the iPad, or I think we'll just wait and see the sales numbers if it exists at all.
Yeah, that is the thing. We're doing it, and we try to avoid talking about rumors because it always sets unreal expectations. Yeah. But this one, it seems to be so persistent and unfortunately so logical that you almost have to consider what it means. And especially when you're in the business you are, you absolutely have to consider the implications of what it might mean for you and how you would address it.
Right. Well, we found with the iPhone, even though the iPhone runs the same version of the iOS operating system as the iPad, we found that it was very frustrating to write books that covered the iPhone, the iPod Touch, and the iPad. And that's because the iPhone, with its phone features, just in too many small ways, it's just a really different device. Or if you want to cover it fully, you really have to acknowledge its phone capabilities. That's an important aspect of it. And we found that it just didn't feel like we were creating a book that was a smooth read for anybody, because you had too much, well, on the iPad or the iPhone. It just didn't feel that good to us, so we stopped doing that. We tried that. I think we may do it again for one book where it seems okay, but it's generally not been good. So as far as this mid-size iPad, if it exists at all, I think it will depend a little bit on where its features end up. But my personal just guess is that it's going to be more like a small iPad than like a big iPhone. So we'll see.
Yeah. So all any of us could do right now is wait and see.
But in the meantime, I finally found a pair of shorts where I can put my iPhone right in the pocket and it fits. So I'm really happy about that.
I didn't know that was a problem, Tonya.
It's a female problem.
Okay.
So I finally found shorts where I can put my iPhone in and it doesn't fall out and it doesn't just make me look fat. And so as far as the iPad mini goes, that just seems really unlikely to happen in women's clothing. So,
Will you give us a link to put in the show notes to these shorts that you can put the iPhone in?
I will. You'll laugh. It's from a company called Horny Toad. Oh, and you know what? I've actually got them on right now. Hang on. Let's see if I can stand up on my chair. All right. You can see my shorts.
Okay.
See these little cargo pockets? They're just perfect for the iPhone. It just fits right in. Aren't you happy to know that?
Tonya, you've pulled off two firsts tonight. First of all, we've never had a Mac Notables fashion show, and given some of our panelists, I hope we never do. And you also have uttered the words bird plumage on the show, which have never appeared on the show.
Sorry.
So,
just, broadening your horizons.
My horizons are just stretched out before me. Speaking of broad horizons, before we let you go, you're running on some new hardware, and I want you to walk us through it and tell us what the thought processes were.
All right. So about 6 years ago, when I was struggling much more with the whole work-parenting balance. My son was younger. I decided that as much as I wanted to work on a big monitor, that the whole idea of having two computers to maintain was just ridiculous. So I decided that I was going to get a laptop computer, because I like to have a laptop for travel and going to meetings and things. And this laptop computer was going to power a single large monitor when it was sitting on my desk, and then when it was time to go away, I would just unplug it from the monitor and go about my business, but I would have only one computer to keep all my software updated on and make backups on and pay attention to, because it was just too hard, frankly, to even keep one computer working well. The idea of having a laptop computer and a desktop computer was just formidably awful. So that was a decision I made. I had an aluminum MacBook Air. It drove, I think, a variety of monitors, but they were all big. And that worked well enough. And then about a year and a half ago, I switched offices to a smaller room in the house with a smaller desk. And I sort of persuaded myself that the monitor and a half that I had, which was a laptop plus this large external monitor, wasn't really necessary, that really all I needed was one monitor. And I persuaded myself of this because I decided that I wanted my laptop to be separate from my desktop computer, that I wanted to have two computers once again. And I didn't think I had room for more monitor. So I decided I could handle maintaining two separate computers, and that one computer would be a laptop and it would not be attached to particular monitors. It would just it would just be a little computer, a little MacBook Air, and it would it would be separate, and then I would have a Mac Mini, in fact, for my desktop computer, and it would just drive one monitor, and that would be fine. And the advantage to this would be that then, for instance, I could run Lion on one computer and Snow Leopard on the other computer, and I could look at both operating systems at the same time, and that my son was older, I had more time, and I could take the time to maintain these two systems in a reasonable way. Okay, so that was fine, except for the problem that I really was sort of deluded in thinking that one monitor was enough space for my desktop computer. It was fine for the laptop. The laptop is like, you know, read Facebook over breakfast, or look up random facts in web browser when company is here, or use when I'm traveling or when I'm taking notes. I seem, no matter what school my son is in, I seem to end up being the secretary. It's like, it's my karma, so I have to have a laptop to take notes on. So as it came about 2 weekends ago, we were trying to clean up our house, and it turned out that we had too many jam and pickle jars in the pantry. And the logical solution was to move some of them into the sort of laundry room, which also has some excellent shelving for jam and pickle jars. But the space below the shelving is completely taken up by this huge G4, which we use for kind of in-house server and for some backups, crash plan backups that relatives do to us and some other stuff. And this G4 server puts out a huge amount of hot air. So it would be unsuitable to store pickles and jam jars directly above the G4 because the hot air would be bad for the food. You're following me so far, right?
I wondered how the pickle and jam jars were going to figure in, but that's very logical. Yeah, keep going.
Back when we bought this Mac Mini, which I mentioned as being my desktop machine, the thought was I would use it to run Lion for a short time during Lion's beta period, and then it would replace the G4. Thus, having a small computer over there in the laundry room near where you might store food, and just a quieter, better system, because really, we don't really, I mean, the Power Mac G4, it's amazing that it works at all, right? So I think, in fact, the video is blown on it. So, but we never did this because I think I was busy, and I decided, no, it was fine. You know, everything's working fine. Don't move a thing on my desk, you know. So we decided that really the time had come, the Mac Mini should replace the G4, and I should get some new hardware. So, we decided that I actually needed a new Mac Mini, or not a new Mac Mini. We decided that I needed a new iMac because it would have a large screen. And in fact, Adam had been coming downstairs and watching me work a few times, and I had commented that it was kind of frustrating because I kept having to move windows around. And so we decided that I should get not only this 27-inch new iMac, but a matching 27-inch external monitor, which is sitting next to it. And so we did this, and I now have these two 27-inch monitors sitting on my desk. They're, in fact, wider than my desk. I have to tilt one inward slightly and have it hang out over the edge of the desk because they don't even fit on my desk. But I just cannot believe that I allowed myself to believe that one monitor was sufficient for what I do, because I often have 2 or 3 documents open at once, just in pages where I'm comparing what one author has written or another author, or I'm copying a boilerplate from one document to another, not to mention having Safari open because I'm researching stuff, or Firefox open because that's where the customer support email rolls in, or the calendar, or who knows what else. And I am so much more having fun. I'm so much more enjoying myself, and I really do think I'm more productive on this huge monitor array. So I'm very happy with my new setup, and we have not yet, however, moved the Mac Mini in place of the G4, but apparently that's because we need to replace a whole bunch of hard drives or something. turned out to be a complicated project. So the pantry is still stuffed with too many jam and pickle jars, but we'll get there.
Well, the camera certainly is doing a great job for you, and I when you were telling the story, I thought, wow, that's a really interesting evolution to go from any previous setup down to one screen.
It was a slow thing. I always used to have 2 monitors, but I didn't have a laptop for a few years, and then I was like, well, I really have to have a laptop so I could have a monitor and a half. Right, that's okay, and that was okay. And then I just sort of talked myself into how I only really needed one monitor, because I still had the laptop, right? So I could look at something over there on the other laptop. But the fact is, just for what I do, it's just awesome. It really is. Yeah. I highly recommend it if you find that you're frequently moving windows around or switching back and forth a lot. It's just so much nicer.
Well, now, Tonya, what you need, you've got one here, you got one here, you got to get a third one over here, so that your tan will be even. Otherwise,
my tan. Well, I do have. I think actually that you all can see that there's a wall basically right here. There's my window. There's a wall. I do have on the wall a little stand, and I do have an iPad over there. I do over there in the stand. Okay. So
see, it's the third stealth screen. I knew it.
Yeah. There is that there, and sometimes I do take the cover off. I like to use it as a little, a little boom box. So I'll often play music from the iPad over there on the wall.
Well, Tonya, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've gone from the redesign of the websites to the process of publishing the ebooks and how that's changed to your new hardware. And I guess the only thing left to say is have a terrific vacation and come back with lots of stories, tech and otherwise. We'd love to hear about it.
Thank you very much. I think it's going to be a good vacation, and come back refreshed, and I'm sure there will be a lot that has changed. I'll be, off email, off web for 10 days, so the world will probably just completely turn over technology-wise.
Well, come back and we'll do a briefing together on what's changed. How about it?
Okay.
All right, sounds good. Folks, that's Tonya Engst. She's getting ready to go on vacation, but before and after vacation, she's still the queen of tidbits and take control. This is Mac Notables, the home of the Mac experts you want to hear from, and I will get the link for Tonya's shorts to put in the show notes, I promise. I'm Chuck Joyner, and as always, thanks for watching. MacVoicesTV is part of the MacVoices Group at MacVoicesGroup.com. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at BackbeatMedia.com.